Today, I sat down with Noah Kahan, singer and songwriter, to talk about life as he knows it as a young man finding success in the music business. You may know Noah from his single Hurt Somebody, and although it's a great song, he is anything but a one-trick pony. Noah released his LP Busy Head this year, and I cannot recommend it enough. False Confidence, Mess, Cynic, Carlo's song, and the title track all come to mind. I guarantee if you give this album a listen, it will speak to you. Noah grew up in Vermont and New Hampshire, spent some time in Costa Rica, and is now touring 8 or 9 months a year coast to coast and internationally as well. Noah has a lot to say and stories to tell, and it was an honor to have him on the podcast. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Radio Free New Hampshire podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad we could finally make it happen.
So it's a long ways away here, long distance.
Yeah, there's a lot of space between us. I don't feel very connected to you right now.
So I just wanted to get to know you a little bit and talk about whatever's going on with you and what's important to you these days. And there's so much going on in the Upper Valley and in the world and in your scene and your life and.
Right.
The whole United States of America is in flux. And
it's crazy times, man.
Yeah, so you're getting a pretty interesting
up.
perspective, I would think. I mean, you grew up here locally in Vermont.
Yeah, Vermont, New Hampshire. So I spent my first 6 or so years in Stratford, and then we moved to Hanover, so we could be closer to the school in Hanover High School, and we still have our place in Stratford, and then I moved back to Stratford about 6 years ago. So I've been kind of playing both sides a little bit, both sides of the Connecticut, and I absolutely love it around here, and especially this time of year.
Yeah, I grew up locally too. I grew up in Thetford, Lyme, and Hanover.
Oh, cool. Did you go to Hanover High?
Yeah, I ended up going to Hanover High. Yeah.
Sweet.
So is that where you graduated from also?
I graduated Hanover High, just by the skin of my teeth. But.
Yeah. Yeah, I was right there with you. Yeah. So I grew up in a pretty, we traveled a lot. My parents worked at Dartmouth and in the hospital and stuff. But, growing up here, it's such a sheltered area. And
Absolutely.
When you leave this place, I got out by joining the military. I was going to go to school at Northeastern, and then I deferred, and I just knew I wasn't going to go to college.
For you?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's definitely a bubble. Even just leaving 30 minutes away, you can find very different communities that struggle with many different issues that we face here in the Upper Valley. The Upper Valley is a very nice place to live. It's got wonderful schools. I grew up with a great community, a safe community, and the expectation is to go to college, especially from Hanover High School, where there's such a competitive environment. So it was definitely kind of shell shock for me to not go to school, and I moved to Nashville, and being in a completely different city in the South was just such a shock. And I hadn't met a lot of people that hadn't come from a similar place that I had. So it was definitely a different perspective, and it was a lot at first for sure.
So Nashville, why Nashville?
Nashville was kind of the natural progression for me in my career, as my manager lives in Nashville, and the publishing company I was signed to, Sony, is in Nashville, and I wanted to go to where the music was. And the Upper Valley is a great place. I've written many songs here and had a great time playing open mics, but there's just not a huge community of music around here, and I needed somewhere where I could really grow as a musician and a songwriter. In Nashville was kind of that dream destination for any budding songwriter. So I went to Nashville when I was 19. I lived there till I was about 21, and it was a wonderful time and a very informative experience for me.
Now, did you play Lower Broadway and those types of things, or was it not really that scene?
It wasn't so much Lower Broadway. That scene is crazy. Most of my band members are coming from the kind of Broadway, Printer Street scene, so it's a hardcore scene. I was more into the songwriting world. I would do a lot of sessions. I would record a lot in Nashville. I played a couple venues in Nashville, but I was mostly focused on just kind of progressing my songwriting and getting better at songwriting and getting ready for the career I was trying to have.
Did you live on your own, or were you with somebody else? Or?
I lived on my own, and it was really tough. So I got a record deal when I was in high school. I was a senior in high school. I was 18 years old, and you get a record deal and you think, oh, I'll be partying with the Jonas Brothers and drinking champagne with Nicki Minaj right away, and that's not at all what happens. What happened was I was told to go back home to Vermont and figure out who I was as an artist and write songs, and it was a tough time because I was really lonely, and all my friends, being from Hanover, I'd gone to these great schools, and growing up around here, I had conditioned myself for the college experience, and I was ready to go to college, and it was definitely hard to have to kind of derail that plan and figure out who I was as a songwriter and be on my own in Vermont. And so I moved to Nashville, try to kind of lose that loneliness, and I ended up having to live alone in Nashville too. So it was definitely an interesting time, and I had to kind of get comfortable with myself down there.
So you wouldn't label yourself as a country singer, really, by any means. You're folk, and I mean, I've heard all sorts of different labels applied. Labels are kind of hard to live by. But.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't. It's definitely not country.
So there's more than a country scene down there.
Right. Nashville has kind of been pigeonholed as a country music town, and obviously that's where its greatest reputation comes. You have Grand Ole Opry, of course, and the Ryman, and all these famous country singers coming from Nashville. But there's actually a really wonderful pop music scene and folk music scene in Nashville. And these producers are coming from LA, where it's incredibly expensive, to Nashville, where it's relatively affordable, and kind of starting little communities of that genre there. So I was fortunate enough to find some of the guys that were doing that, and find a pop folk community in Nashville where country is so prevalent.
That's pretty cool. What was that like for you? I mean, just personally leaving this area and going down to. I mean, when I left this area, I moved to. Well, first I went to basic training in Alabama, Anniston, Alabama.
Wow.
And, I'd never seen a Golden Corral before, and Shoney's and all these places.
Yeah, that Pilot gas station. You're like, oh, damn.
Food scene, But
they eat down there, bro. I gained 25 pounds. It was hard, man. I mean, you went to Hanover. You grew up with these people. The friends I had in Hanover, I'd known since I was 10 years old, and I was 18 when I left. So it's a long time, and having to make new friends and be in a place by myself and kind of create a community was hard, for sure. I also gained, like I said, 15 pounds in my first 2 months there, and it was holy shit. I guess it was my freshman 15.
Yeah, right.
But the food is super unhealthy. It's all hot chicken and beer, and I was trying to just kind of dive into the scene as much as I could, and it was definitely difficult at first, but the friends I made have been friends for life so far, and it was definitely rewarding to kind of go somewhere on my own and prove to myself that I could create a community for myself, make friends for myself, and put myself out there, because I didn't really ever have to do that while I was.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of what the college experience is anyway. I mean, not having gone to college, but but that's it. It's getting out, and they kind of ease you into things. I mean, you live in a dorm, and there's an RA and all of that, and so you're on your own, but it's not really 100% on your own. Whereas, you just kind of jumped right into it.
Yeah, I was definitely I'd always prepare myself to go to college, and I was in college, I'll be able to be in communities with other people and clubs with other people and make friends. And when I went to Nashville, it was yo, you're just moving into this house in Nashville, and go out and make some friends. And it was oh, I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah.
And I never really wanted to. I kind of arrogantly assumed that I would just make friends naturally, and that friends would just come to me. And I really had to come to terms with the fact that I had to put myself out there and actually go out and do things and find communities for myself instead of just expecting them to form around me. So
yeah, and so you're not an old man. You're 22. So,
22, yeah.
And so this is fairly recent history.
Right. Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great. I feel I matured a lot in that year, though. Just being kind of a gut check of all right, loneliness sucks, and I don't want to be lonely anymore, and I want to make some friends, and if that means I need to put myself out there more and be more open-minded to different activities and different things, then I'll do it. So.
Yeah, I think, but I don't know what your experience was, but the closest I've come is singing karaoke. And when you go to do karaoke and you go up that first time and you're nervous and everybody's looking at you, and you people tend to be reserved, and you hold back a lot, and you're not your best self. And then finally, after you've done it a few times, you start to realize, you look around and you realize, these people that are really having fun with it, that sound great, whether they sound really good or not musically, that are just having a blast.
Enjoying it.
Yeah, they just let it all out and they let it go. And what was that? I mean, that musically, you grew up doing open mic.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of balls to get out there and put yourself in front of people.
Yeah, it was music and performing has been one of those things I've just always loved. My first ever performance was at Kendall. It was my dad and I we played Father and Son by Cat Stevens. That was the first time I ever performed, and the feeling was so cool. We sounded like shit. We were awful, terrible, but it was so cool to be able to be in front of people and have the kind of the room watching you do something you love. And I just wanted to find as many opportunities to do that as I could. And I guess I had I had a surplus of confidence as a young man playing these open mics because I didn't sound very good, but I would just love to get out there and play and hear myself in the speaker and see other people paying attention and being able to play these songs that I love live. So I never really dealt with the stage fright in terms of just performing. What freaked me out was when I would play at school talent shows because I was afraid of my friends finding out and thinking I was bad, and people that I would have to see every day. And it's a real exposing environment to be in, is showing someone that you're vulnerable on stage. You're the most vulnerable person in the world. Everyone else is in a position where they're hidden, and you're the one that everyone's looking at. And that was hard for me at first. And I think it's just doing it and getting out there and kind of facing the fear, and the feeling afterwards when you face the fear is what makes the next time worth it for me.
And that was Kendall, the old folks home, Kendall, or is that something else?
Kendall, the first show I ever did was Kendall at the old folks home.
The retirement home, yeah.
With my dad. And then the next show I did was at my elementary school talent show, and I sang a song I wrote called Wednesdays Are the Worst Days of My Life. And completely a cappella, and everyone was stunned silent. I was like, man, I just killed that. I'm great. I get to my room, and the school therapist comes in and I have to do a week of mandatory sessions because the song was so depressing. So, so that's when I knew I was destined for a career in writing. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Do you write also? Like, do you write outside of music? Do you write poetry or? I
grew up writing a lot of poetry. My mom's an author, and so I grew up with writing being a big focus in the household, and it was what I was best at in school, and I loved writing short stories and writing poems. I kind of just love writing and being able to express myself through writing. So I've always done that. Yeah.
And then tying that in with music, you got a whole other.
Yeah, songwriting was always my biggest goal. But just having the ability to access my mom as a resource, someone that's a professional. She's a best-selling author, and so I was.
That's great.
Yeah, it was great. And I was able to kind of write these stories and get her opinion on them, and it was a lot of tough love with the writing, which actually I didn't like at the time because it hurt, but I really appreciate it now because it made me a lot better. So I was always writing in the house, and my mom was always kind of critiquing and helping me out, and so when I started writing songs, it was I had some experience on my belt.
That's pretty neat. So from Nashville, you went to where?
So Nashville, I wrote the songs in Nashville, and I would kind of bounce between Nashville and Los Angeles in terms of recording and writing. And I released my first song in January of 2017 when I was living in Nashville, and then I started to hit the road, and I was touring a lot. I think I did about 5 months of 2017 on the road and 8 months of 2016 on the road, I believe. Wow. So it didn't make much sense for me to be paying rent in Nashville. I don't, believe it or not, musicians make no money at all, especially not at least not at the level I'm at. So I was kind of unable to afford my place in Nashville while being on the road so much. It just didn't make sense for me anymore. So I moved out. I moved back home, and I kind of lived between Stratford and the road.
So the LA move, was that something that the record company suggested, or?
LA was really just a resource full of producers and songwriters. So I would kind of go to LA. I'd get like an Airbnb, and I'd write songs out there and record out there, and then head back to Nashville or head back to Vermont. So I never really lived in LA.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm definitely not attractive enough to live in LA. I figured that out when I got there. I was like, oh my god, every person I see is the most beautiful person in the world. Yeah, it's like if those people came back to Vermont, they'd be killing it. So
one of our daughters lives in LA, and she's all right because she's a pretty girl.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard for a dude with a big nose Jewish guy in LA.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas in New York, where I'm living now, I'm like an 8.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I haven't got that far yet. But,
You do great for yourself, man.
All right. So that 2017, what was that first song that you released?
It's called Youngblood.
Okay, I've heard it. Yeah.
That was an interesting release because I had been, like I said, at home in Nashville writing songs and figuring out what I wanted to do. And the first single's kind of a big thing, I guess, because it's your first introduction. It's the world's first. It's the first time they're hearing you, and first impression they're gonna have of you, and it's your introduction to your fan base and your potential fan base, and all the people you've been telling that you've been doing music to who didn't believe you, and all the people back home who were like, "Well, what are you up to these days, man?" It's like, I swear I'm doing music. So it was a big moment for me, and the song came about because I had written a lot of songs, and we weren't really coming up with anything we really liked, and I wrote first chorus and verse to Youngblood, and I sent it to my management, and they were like, I don't know. Then I played it for a friend of mine who was also at home kind of figuring out who he was. And he was like, I love this song. I really connect with it. And I think that you need to push this song to your management and just tell them that you're doing it. And so I went to LA and I recorded it with this wonderful producer, Joel Little. And we recorded Youngblood and sent it to my management. They're like, oh, wow, okay. Maybe we were wrong about this song. We really like it. So we released it and it kind of, it kind of took off. And a lot of people connected with it. It's still like a fan favorite and probably my favorite song I've written.
Yeah, I heard it today again. And it's a great tune.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
So nowadays I don't know what it's like anymore. In the past, I'm a lot older than you. I'm 20. I don't know, 5 years older than you. I would have asked you, I guess, when you first heard yourself on the radio. But what is it nowadays?
I mean, the radio's still the coolest one because like you can just press your name on Spotify and stuff, so it's not that exciting. But I've heard myself on the radio a couple times, and it's just so crazy. It's pretty inexplicable. It almost feels weird, that first feeling of being like, that's my voice, and it just got played between like a Lumineers song and a Bob Dylan song. It's insane to be accompanied to these amazing artists and part of the culture of music right now. You're on the radio, which means that people want to hear what you have to say, and your song's doing well, and it just makes it all the kind of the BS you go through getting here worth it.
Did you know it was coming up, or like were they telling you you're going to have play on this station or anything like that? Or
it's a lot of times it's been random. When a radio station starts playing your song, they add it, and you get kind of notified by your record label or whoever's managing you that the station added it, but you never know when they're going to play it. And so I would sit in my car and I'd just drive around like Lebanon and Hanover with the point on. I'd be like, oh, maybe they're going to play it. And then I would like hear it come up when I least expected it, and I would just lose my mind.
That's cool.
So cool, man. It's definitely like the coolest feeling ever.
So your biggest hit so far is what?
I think if I had a big hit, I think I Hurt Somebody did really well.
Yeah.
But I haven't had like a hit in America. I've Hurt Somebody was a #1 song in Australia, which was really interesting. It was kind of a curveball in the career, with Spotify these days. You put the music out and you don't really have control over who listens to it.
Yeah.
And it just really impacted in Australia. And it became a #1 song in Australia for 3 weeks. So I had to fly over there a ton and tour in Australia, a place that I never really otherwise would have gone.
Drag, huh? Yeah.
Very inconvenient. Yeah. 20-hour flight. I can't deal with it, man. Yeah. But it was awesome. Like the opportunity to go to Australia like 4 times into 2017 and 18 was awesome.
Yeah, my 20-hour flights were to Korea, so I would take Australia any day over there.
Hey, man.
What was Australia like? Is it pretty cool to be there?
Dude, it's awesome.
People are nice?
People are. It's pretty similar to America. I think in the kind of the people are all. They're a little drier and woodier, which I think is great because I love like a dry sense of humor. But it's just beautiful, man. Like the coast is beautiful there, and the nature is obviously, unbelievable. And being by the ocean, and it's just a really cool place. And then I never really otherwise would have been to Australia or been going to Australia. So having kind of a song that do well there, bringing me there all the time was really interesting and cool. It was also the only time I've ever felt like really like I was famous. Like there'd be like paparazzi at the airport when I would get there, which was insane, and I loved it too. Like usually in the videos you see people like ducking, like get away from me. Like I'm just trying to enjoy my time. I was like, yo, let's go, guys, come on, follow me.
That's cool,
this is awesome. So it was cool, man. It was really really fun. I wanna do more music down there and get back there because it's an awesome place.
That's really neat. Yeah, I mean I've heard somebody organically. Like I was at Jesse's restaurant.
Yeah, right.
Maybe.
Right.
A month ago, and it was just on.
Came on.
So that's pretty cool.
It's crazy, man. You kind of like I hate getting used to the feeling of people being like, "I heard your song on the radio." It's like you don't want to ever get used to that feeling. It's such a unique, special thing. You never know when it's gonna happen again. So I try to like cherish every time I hear my music out in public. It's so cool. So
when you first started touring, like what were those venues like?
So the first tour I ever did, I was opening up for this band, the Strumbellas, who are like a really awesome Canadian folk band. It was my first ever tour, and we were playing in about 1,100 to 1,500 capacity venues, which was insane because the biggest show I'd ever done was at Murano Gelato in Hanover for about 45 people. So it was a huge change, and I pretended in my head like I was ready for it, but like looking back, I was totally not ready for it. I was nervous. I would like lose my voice because I sang so hard and with so many nerves. It was insane. It was insane touring the country and playing the shows and being in front of that many people, it was crazy.
Yeah, that's a big step up.
Yeah, it was like getting paid in gelato, and then suddenly seeing 1,500 faces in front of me was pretty insane. I'll always remember that tour. I think the first tour is always the most special one, and I'll always remember that.
And now, what is it like for you now? You're doing. I mean, 1,500 is still a decent sized venue. What is the one in Burlington? Higher Ground.
Higher Ground.
How big is that?
I think it's 970.
Yeah.
So what's cool is I'm now doing. So that was an opening room with Strumbellas, and now 2 years later I'm headlining those same venues, which is really cool. And I've been able to see the progress. And I used to play those venues with the Strumbellas and be like, man, I cannot believe all these people are here. Hope someday that I can do that. And now I'm doing it, and it's really cool to have that perspective of being like, I started out here, and now I'm headlining here. So I'm doing like 1,500 capacity rooms, kind of 800 to 1,000 venues all over the place, and a lot of them are selling out, which is insane. It's crazy to like sell out a venue in like Chicago. I have no one I know in Chicago in my life. Have been there twice, and to have 1,000 people spend money to come see my show there is really cool. So it's definitely grown a lot, and I was on the road opening up for 2 years. So the grind that I did and the hustle I had to put in to get here has been worth it, I think, so far.
Yeah, and you're still working hard now. I mean,
yeah, man, it's hard work. I mean, it doesn't feel like hard work, so you're doing what you love, but a lot of the times you take a second to breathe and think about the travel and the kind of energy and the focus you have to put into it. It's definitely taxing emotionally.
And you don't have an entourage that's going around with you either, so a lot of this is on your own, right?
I know, man. I don't know how all these rappers do it. Yeah. I'm like, yo, guys, come to the studio, man. I'm going to write a song about anxiety today. They're like, no, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know, man. I have my band who have become close with me, but it's definitely kind of a lonely experience sometimes. There's not a lot of people that understand the lifestyle or understand the travel commitments, and it takes a lot out of you. And people are like, well, you're living your dream, you're doing what you love, and that can be hard because it's kind of, you don't feel like you have an excuse for the shittiness you're feeling. You know what I mean? Pardon my language, but throw that little explicit sign on.
You're okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like people don't. It's not their fault, but sometimes people can't really fully understand what I do have to go through sometimes for this career to be a reality, and that can be a little isolating for sure.
Well, the perception about the money too,
yeah,
it's different because I don't even know how you guys make money other than shows and a little bit of merch, right?
That's it. That's really it, man. I mean, radio doesn't pay much. Spotify doesn't pay anything. It's 70% of the money you make as an artist is from touring and from merch.
Yeah.
And the only way to make money is by being on the road all the time. And it's definitely not a glamorous kind of enriching lifestyle at the level I'm at. I mean, the money these huge artists are making are from endorsements and from their enormous shows and from being already successful and getting there. You're kind of Sisyphus. You're just pushing the boulder up the hill and having it roll back down on you. And I don't know if that's the right Greek person that I named, but if that is, then damn.
You're asking the wrong guy. I didn't go to college.
Neither of us went to college, man.
Yeah. So
four-letter words for us only.
And your CDs, it's a whole different ballgame now because, one of my stories, I was in a bar in El Paso in 1994, and there was this band playing, and I liked the song, and I went up and bought a CD, and they all signed it. And it was a country band. It was Toby Keith and Should Have Been a Cowboy.
Oh,
they were just playing some bar, he was from El Paso, or played a lot in El Paso. And,
wow.
And so that was really cool. And they were selling CDs and, T-shirts, and of course, that was the game back then. But now, almost everything's digital download, right? What percentage of your music do people even buy digitally anymore, or is it all just streaming?
People, it's definitely not as much as they used to. People still do buy CDs and buy hard copies and vinyl. I think vinyl's coming back, which is cool because kind of people are like, it's almost like a piece of art to have a vinyl record. Digitally, I don't think digital downloads are as common or as, they're just not as common as they were. People don't really buy off like Apple or iTunes. It's mostly Apple Music streaming, Spotify streaming, Tidal, Amazon
they're
Music.
Shutting down iTunes is the word.
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah, which sucks. I feel like every day I make less money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I always respect people that buy CDs and buy vinyl.
I love vinyl. Yeah.
Vinyl's the best, man. More people should get record players and buy vinyl.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a pain in the ass to like carry a vinyl record around, but Man, it's cool.
It doesn't fit on my shoulder very well,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, exactly.
No, I do. Of course, the streaming. I use Apple Music, and
Right.
but then I buy vinyl, and anytime that an artist that I like is releasing something, I always try to grab it on vinyl right off the bat.
Yeah, it supports the artist, and that money's a lot of that money's the only money that artists will make in a lot of cases. So yeah, my friends, I always try to get my friends to buy my songs.
Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, I heard your song on Spotify." I'm like, "Really? Why don't you buy the record, man? If you really care."
What's it been like maintaining relationships and friendships and all that while you're touring? Because you're touring 8 or 9 months a year right now still.
Yeah.
And you've done some European stuff too. Is that right?
Yeah, European stuff, obviously the Australian tours, a lot of the stuff in the States and Canada. It's been interesting. I think a lot of my friends, I've stayed close with many of my friends from back home, and they've been incredibly supportive. I've definitely had some friendships that have been tested to just lack of communication, and it's hard, man. It's hard to stay in touch with anybody after you leave your hometown, but especially when you're kind of living a drastically different lifestyle.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends are in school and kind of doing great, important things, but taking more of a traditional path based on where we're from. So it's hard for me to connect with a lot of people on a personal level because I'm touring and in the music career, and they're getting degrees from college. So it's been hard, but I think that having that kind of understanding that our lives are different and finding a common thread in what we feel and what we think has maintained a lot of my relationships. So
Yeah.
I stay close with a lot of my friends, and I keep in touch with people I knew from high school all the time. And yeah.
Do your parents come out to see you on the road at all? Or?
Yeah, they do. My mom comes to a lot of my shows. My dad does not like leaving Stratford, but he comes. He's coming to my Burlington show. He actually bought a VIP package to my a meet and greet package to my Burlington show, which I think is absolutely hilarious.
That's great.
Because we're gonna get dinner before the show, and he's gonna be in line with like a bunch of like 17-year-old girls at a meet and greet. He's gonna get like a photo with me.
Hey,
It's
that's
gonna be
dedication, man. That's really great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, "Yo, what's my personalized T-shirt gonna look like?" He's like, "I've got a bunch of questions for you," and I know he's gonna bring up some embarrassing shit
Of course,
that I
yeah.
don't want to answer. So, yeah, they're very supportive. They come out to shows all the time. My mom's come to see me in Denmark,
Wow.
London. She's come to New York, Boston, Burlington. Whenever I'm in New England, she'll come see me, and yeah, it's cool because she used to drive me to Burlington and to Woodstock and to Queechee to play open mics all the time. So
Now she's driving you to Denmark.
yeah, she's like, damn, such a bigger pain in the ass. I wish you were still playing Skunk Hollow, brother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I love Skunk Hollow. Carlos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just such a spot, man. Such a
yeah.
great spot. I used to play Wednesdays there all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all the time, man. That's a great spot. There's some great open mic spots around here. I've always thought that Gusano should do open mic, man.
Yeah, yeah. We looked at. We used to have Carlos play here every Monday for a while.
Oh yeah.
And it's just tough. Really, it came down to insurance.
Right.
Our insurance agency came in and said that they were going to jack us up $10,000 a year in insurance,
really?
and so we had to make some tough decisions.
Yeah.
But we used to do a lot of live music when we had our Woodstock location. We did live music there, I think, twice a week at the peak, and
Oh, sweet.
yeah, we really get into the scene. We just it's just hard to host it these days with all the additional costs.
Yeah, I can
unless
imagine.
unless you're big enough to make it worthwhile. But if it's just a
Right.
small room,
Yeah.
they jack up all these other ancillary costs.
That makes sense. Yeah, man. I mean, just having it be a cool restaurant and having live music there would make it a cool destination. I wish I'd been able to play some of the Woodstock ones, man. Was that in recent history?
2006, 2007 when we were doing Woodstock.
Okay. I was still singing Wednesday was the worst days in the
Yeah.
life. I would have brought the mood down in the room.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So when you're touring and you're doing all this stuff, I mean, how do you maintain a personal life, because it's a go atmosphere, right? And I mean, do you get to go out when you're in Chicago? Do you get to go out when you're and see the
see the
scene
cities and
all
stuff.
that, yeah.
It's a learning process in terms of maintaining personal life and health and kind of sanity almost on the road. When we were for the past 2 years, we've been in a Sprinter van with 6 people. Driving for hours before the show and driving hours after the show to get to the halfway to the next venue. 'Cause America's huge, dude. I mean, I never knew. I was in New England my entire life, and everything's kind of close together. It's like Boston's 2 hours away.
You're like, I gotta go to Boston.
Yeah. But now I'm driving from like Denver to Nebraska or Chicago to Nebraska or, Portland to LA. And the country is so big, and there's so much travel needed to get to these venues, and you're playing 3 shows in a row, or 3 shows for 3 days in a row, and you need to get to each one on time. So it can be hard to kind of get time to explore the city and to see things. And, I've been to Chicago 4 times, and I've never been outside of the radius of 2 miles within the venue I've been playing in. So until now, where we've got a tour bus and we're about to kind of be able to drive overnight, park in the morning, and explore the city, it's been a lot of hustle.
So no more Sprinter van. You're upgrading.
No more Sprinter van. No more hemorrhoids. Man, life is good. It's gonna be good. It's our first tour with a tour bus. We're all super excited.
And that's just stateside though.
Stateside, yeah. Stateside in Canada, but it's gonna be a lot more fun because we're gonna be able to see the world a little bit and not kind of be stuck driving, and the stress of being the one that has to drive at 2 a.m. after a show can really change the vibe. So we're excited for the bus. And in terms of like health and sleep, the first couple tours I went out, and I was just excited. I was so excited by the idea of the energy in the room, and after the show, the energy of the fans, and kind of like trying to like keep building on the energy I had during the show. And I would go out, or we would like go hang out, and we'd be exhausted the next day, or I wouldn't be able to sing the next day because I was screaming at the venue while the headlining act was up the next day. And that was something I had to learn, is kind of picking your nights that you want to go out and have fun, and picking the amount of talking you can do after the show, and the kind of the amount of hanging out you can do after the show, because it can affect the next day. And it's a real marathon on the road, and not a sprint. So you want to, as fun and energetic as those 45-minute sets can be, you need to kind of find a way to bring yourself down after, and kind of focus and maintain yourself so you don't burn out.
Do you get to work out a lot of new music when you're on the road? Or do you mostly play,
It depends on the set. Usually when we're opening up, it's a lot of just play the songs that have performed well and that people know, and kind of get out of there. But on the headline shows, you gotta work out new songs and play new songs, and kind of test them out, get them road tested, which I love, because you don't have an opportunity a lot to get a completely fresh perspective on a new thing you've been working on. So going out on the road when you're headlining is cool, because you got to play a new thing and see if people like it or not, and get back and work on it and make it better or scrap it. So yeah.
Do you have time to write when you're out?
I traditionally have not had a lot of time to write, but that's mostly just because I've kind of been either burnt out, exhausted, sick, or just sleeping. So this next tour, which we're leaving on in about 2 weeks, we're going to be bringing a little studio set up. I'm going to try to write some songs and record some music on the road. That's the goal, yeah.
Where do you write best? When you go home to Stratford? Or?
Yeah, I write best in Stratford. I just feel really grounded and connected to myself and like my feelings there. And but a lot of the times I come up with really great ideas when I'm stressed out, or if I'm traveling a lot, because you're kind of not in the process of trying to come up with something. It kind of just pours out of you, and then I'll come back home and I'll kind of refine it and flesh out the idea so it's more completed. But Stratford's where I feel most comfortable creating.
You make notes, or you record it, or what do you do?
Yeah, lots of little notes and lots of recordings. A lot of times I'll do like a recording in like a busy street or something like that, and I'll be like, nah, 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 and I can't, like, I'll listen to it 2 weeks later and be like, I don't know what I was talking about. I can't remember that shit at all.
Yeah.
And it was bad. So
it sounded great at the time. You're like, this is it.
Yeah, you're like, I have to do it or else I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do little notes, and I'll kind of like write down little things I like and do little voice memos. But yeah.
So, I mean, your music that you write, I mean, a lot of it, I love the localization. I think Mess, you talk about, taking 89 to Boston. Coming home and you'll promise to feed the dog.
Yeah, right. I like to keep home with me. This is such an important place to me. The Upper Valley is so important to me.
Yeah.
My family is so important to me. My pups are important to me. Where I'm from is who I am, I think, in a lot of ways. And I like to bring that into my music, because I think being personal and honest is what I think makes my music unique, or at least to me. And I try to be as real as possible in that. And I also want to address something now that I'm on the podcast. People have been complaining to me about how 89 doesn't go to Boston, but y'all are idiots. 89 goes to where I need to go to get to Boston. I was playing a show in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and they're like, it's 93 to Boston, man. And I was like, yeah, I know it's 93 to Boston, but I have to get on 89 to to get to 93, and 93 to Boston does not sing very well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I agree with you.
So that's just a PSA for the folks out there that have been mad at me.
Hey,
about
if you're
that.
from this area, it's 89.
Yeah, and everyone
That's
around here is
it.
like, yeah, we know it's 89, man. We got
That's
you.
it.
We got
Yeah.
you.
Do you bump into people like when you're out, other parts of the country, other parts of the world, even that know you're from New England, know you're from this area, or they don't really know where you're coming from yet? Or
Some people do, and that's always super cool. And someone will be like, dude, I like went to school in like Northeastern or like out UVM, and that's always so cool, especially because like when you travel for a while and you just feel really foreign and you feel far away from home, and having someone say they're from Vermont or they know somebody is just so cool, and you feel a little less homesick, a little more connected. So
yeah, it's almost like tribal in a way. I remember like being overseas and bumping into somebody from Vermont or
man.
or even like Connecticut. Yeah,
right.
It's pushing it.
Yeah,
Like, we're from New England.
You'll give it to them if depends how far away you are.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It really is tribal around here, and it's a very unique perspective around here, and New England is such a unique place, and it's kind of, for better or for worse, New Englanders are New Englanders, and seeing people out kind of in the wild of the world, seeing people from New England is cool, and you feel like you can connect with them.
Yeah. I'm surprised that's all you got when you're down in Gloucester. They're like, "Oh, you fucking idiot!"
There was a little bit of that too.
Yeah,
There's a little.
mother. Yeah.
I said I was playing Mess, and there's a line in Mess that's I'll take 89 to Boston. I was like, listen, guys, if you guys don't sing this line, I'm gonna change it to Philly, and they were all pissed off at me. It was really funny.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Carlos. Who's Carlos?
Carlo is or was one of my best friends from.
It's Carlo, not Carlos.
Carlo, yes, confusing.
No, I think I just wrote it down. Carlo's song.
Right, I was like, there's an apostrophe.
Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah, Carlo was a guy that I met when I was a sophomore in high school. We moved to Hanover, and he became really, really close with me and all my friends, and I became really close with him. And he was just the coolest dude ever. He had super long hair, and he was a surfer and skier and was an outdoorsman at his heart, and had a really wild, free spirit. He would like longboard everywhere. He didn't have a car. He would just longboard all over the place from Norwich into Hanover, and it wasn't like a traditional person, and I really connected with his spirit. He didn't care about what people thought about him, and we just became really close. We would go out on the weekends and camp and drink together and hang out, and he loved fireworks and dirt biking and skiing, and I don't know, he's just a special person, and tragically passed away 2 years ago in May from kind of sudden illness, and it was really, really hard, and I'd never lost anybody before at all that I knew and cared about, and let alone someone I was really close with, and it just hit me really hard, and it was a really tough time, and I think I lost a little bit of myself when he died, and I like to write music when I'm feeling that way, and I wanted to honor his memory and write a song about the last time I saw him. We hiked up to Guile Mountain. You been to the fire tower in Guile?
I was going to ask if it was Cardigan, because I heard the fire tower line.
Cardigan Tower is great. It was Guile over in Norwich, and we hiked up Guile, and he was just it was like the most classic Carlo day ever. He loved like really weird local craft brews and brought some IPAs, and he loved playing Jack White out of a speaker, and we were listening to Jack White as we hiked up, and he was like swearing and yelling the whole time, and other people coming down the trail were like, oh my god, these fucking assholes. And so we were walking up, and we looked out over the upper valley over the sun. There was a sunset, and I think it was October, and it was peak foliage. It was so beautiful. We were drinking and listening to music, and it was the last time I ever saw him. So I wanted to write a song about how special that moment was to me and how much it meant. And that's like my favorite song I've ever written, and it connects with people, and his family likes it, and I don't know. It's just a way for me to remember him, and music is my memory, and I always remember Carlos. So he was the man. Yeah, we actually ate at Gusano's a couple times.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. He was awesome, dude. He was a great guy, and I miss him very, very much.
It's a powerful song.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's very real to me and very personal to me, and I don't know.
Do you play it?
Yeah, we play it
on the road.
I play it everywhere I go. It's my favorite part of the set because it's something that will always feel like I'm honoring him. It always feels like I'm remembering him and kind of conjuring him up a little bit when I play it. And it makes me feel like I'm with him again or at home again. And I play it when I'm feeling lost, and hearing people sing it back to me and connect with it in their own lives, when people they've lost or people they loved and aren't in touch with anymore, makes it worth it. And it just makes me feel less like shitty about it, because the pain doesn't really go away. But when I play it, I get some catharsis from it. So yeah, it's special to me for sure.
Yeah, you can feel it when you hear it in the recording.
Thanks,
I can imagine
man.
live it must be even more powerful.
Yeah, man, it's special for sure for me. It's my favorite song. Yeah, he was the man.
I think you mentioned a Billy Joel song in there too, don't you?
Yeah.
That's Carlo's song, right?
Yeah, he loved Billy Joel. I listened to Billy Joel a lot. I was listening to Only the Good Die Young, and he's just one of those people that I can't imagine him. I can't imagine him. It's weird, like I would love nothing more for him to be here, but I can't imagine him being anyone else than he was at 20 years old in Vermont, longboarding around and drinking. He's just one of those people that was like an enigma, and one of those people that I can't characterize, and I can't imagine who he would be today. But yeah, I don't know. He was the greatest.
Well, Forever 20, right?
Forever 20, man. Yeah. Only the good die young. It's true.
The pain that you experience, does that translate to better art? Because you're somebody, and I've listened to a couple interviews that you've done. You talked about, going through various levels of depression and at different times in your life. Do you think that that's an important component to your writing?
Unfortunately, I think it is really important in my writing, and the feeling of pain is something really I think that people can connect with. And when I'm feeling in pain, the only way to make it a little better is to write, and it gives me a perspective on life. I think that if I was just happy all the time and kind of floating through life, I don't think I would have a very interesting perspective, And I think feeling that pain and feeling the lows gives you a more gratification when you're in a better place and when you're feeling better. And it's kind of the unfortunate conundrum for an artist is having to live with this pain, but having it be the thing that inspires what people love about your art. And I don't mean to sound pretentious, but Van Gogh said, "Great artists suffer," and I don't want to suffer, and I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to experience mental illness, but it definitely plays a major role in the creation of my music, and it allows me to feel catharsis through my songs. So yeah, there's definitely pain involved in the creation of the music, and it's the pain that creates the music also allows me a little relief from it too. And when I've created something and made something I'm proud of, so it's kind of a weird, toxic, abusive relationship with my brain. So yeah.
It's I think there's a lot of talk these days about like antidepressants versus other avenues of working through depression. There's people say exercise or art, and there's a lot of different ways to get through those times.
Yeah. I've taken off and on. I've taken antidepressants for a long time. I think there's a stigma around taking antidepressants that I think is really unhealthy for a lot of people. Exercise, counseling, meditation, diet.
You think the stigma is unhealthy, or taking antidepressants?
No,
I
think the stigma against taking them is unhealthy. Because I think there are many ways that you can treat depression and anxiety, but there's no cure-all for everybody, and some people cannot function without antidepressants, without the serotonin that antidepressants give them. And you can exercise all you want for some people, and you can meditate. That might not do it, and having there be this kind of stigma and taboo mentality around taking a drug to make yourself happier is dangerous.
Or talking about it even. It used to be. I think it's more open now. It used to be totally out.
Yeah, it used to be like you're crazy and Prozac is going to make you kill people and violent. It's really sucks, and it deterred me for a long time from taking the drug, and it helped me tremendously, and I'm now off it. But taking it got me out of a really dark place, and what it does, I think, for a lot of people is it kind of gives you that chemical boost that allows you to get off it and then start living in a different way and start living with the counseling and health and being healthier. But it gives you a chance to kind of zap yourself into a more proactive mode. yeah, I think it's dangerous that people talk about antidepressants in such a negative way. I don't think that there's something you should just go right into without thinking about them, but I definitely don't think it's something you shouldn't consider based on society's perspective on them at all.
You think it affects creativity taking them?
It's interesting, man. I can't say for I think like I said, I think it goes case for case, but it definitely it affected my creativity in that it didn't allow me to. It didn't give me. I didn't have the constant fear of not creating when I was on antidepressants. It's kind of fucked up, but I was like content when I was on them. I felt like I was able to just go through my life and be okay, and I wasn't worried all the time. And part of my worry is this drive to create and this worry about not creating music. And when I was taking the antidepressants, I felt like I wasn't worrying about making music, and then I was kind of just okay with it. And when I'm not on them, I'm constantly worried, so I'm constantly writing and trying to kind of beat that worry. It's really neurotic, but I think they can have a blunting effect on creativity. But I think a lot of times, conversely, depression can destroy your creativity as well. So it kind of depends on what we were willing to live with. A little bit blunted creativity by antidepressants or serious depression that destroys your love for creating at all. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a balancing act, and I think it depends on the person. But I think you need to put your health before your creativity. I think your ability to survive your life and your brain is more important than your ability to create, and I think you have to prioritize.
Live to create another day.
Exactly, man. Yeah. That's exactly right. Live to create another day. Make sure you can be around to create again, And if anyone listening to this at all is on antidepressants or considering taking antidepressants, you got to do what you got to do. And I think it's not something you have to be on your entire life, and you can get off them and get back on them whenever you want, obviously with the guidance of a medical professional. But just don't be afraid of it because it can help you.
Well, I think it's tough, too, because there's, everybody talks about it, access to healthcare is so... I don't know if it's class-driven, but it seems to be. A lot of people don't have access to health care if you're in that. If you don't have health insurance, or even if you do, the deductibles are so high these days. It's tough, and access to mental health care is really tough. It's hard to find, someone to talk to. It's hard to get into a program.
It's hard around here, man. The mental health counseling, and I've been blessed to have a good health care plan through my parents, which has been great. But even just finding a counselor around here can be really difficult. Finding someone that's available and local. When I was seeing a counselor around here, it was like an hour and a half away. I'd have to drive to go see somebody, and it just wasn't enough. I didn't have enough time to do that, and for the help I needed, it wasn't enough. And it's scary to not have any help, and to have people that genuinely cannot help, genuinely cannot fix your problem in a way that you need. It can be tough, and it's a rural area for the most part, and it's a tragedy, man. I think there should be better infrastructure in the area and nationally for mental health and for folks who need help.
I agree. I think it's especially tough here. I think the whole system here is so overwhelmed with all the addiction issues as well.
Yeah.
All these folks that are addicted to opiates and some of the other hard stuff that's out there.
Yeah, I remember I went to see somebody when I was in high school, and it's the only counselor I was able to see on such short notice, and I needed help, and I didn't have any addiction, but because all he knew was addiction specialist, so he kind of approached everything with this mindset of addiction treatment, and that wasn't what I needed necessarily. And obviously, drug addiction and alcohol addiction is a huge issue in Vermont and New Hampshire. But it was interesting to kind of see the disparity between addiction counseling and counseling for other mental health problems.
Well, the whole system is so strained too, and then all the legal aspects. So Vermont now, weed is legal.
Yeah.
But there's still no real avenue to buy it, right? In Vermont, you can go to Mass and buy it and bring it to Vermont.
Can you do that?
Well, I know people that do.
You got to go through New Hampshire, dude.
No, you got to cut around. You got to go through Worcester.
Well, that's a pain in the ass.
You got to go through Worcester, exactly. You don't want to drive through New Hampshire with that. Go to jail for 20 years.
No, sir. Yeah, crazy.
It's insane in New Hampshire. Well, New Hampshire is the only, this island now. One of our kids is fighting up against that right now. And so what he allegedly did in New Hampshire, you can get up to 20 years. Federally, it would be maximum of a year.
Right.
And if you did it in Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, or any of the other states where recreational is legal, there'd be zero penalty.
Zero penalty. It's insane.
It's absolutely insane. And this, he spent thousands of dollars and dedicated now 2 years of his life to fighting this. And
yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's terrible. Yeah.
I know many, friends of mine, myself included, I was arrested for possession of maybe enough weed to get your cat high. It was like half a gram of weed in my car, and the cops in Hanover found it, and I got arrested for it. And I could have gone to Vermont or Massachusetts today and had not been in any trouble at all.
You can go to the toy store or whatever they call it, or the candy store in Massachusetts and buy. Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy that if you're looking at it from like a logical and rational point of view, it seems insane. Then you look at the legislation and the bureaucracy of it just makes it so absurd. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's terrible. Do you get involved in politics at all, or do you watch it or listen to it?
I mean, it's kind of hard to stay away from it. I actually don't like to be completely uninformed. It's obviously been a very overwhelming, insane. My first election was 2016.
So you voted in 2016?
I voted in 2016. Yeah. And I just, it's hard. It's hard, man. It's hard to have conversations with people about politics because I don't know because it's so tied up in identity now. It's hard for me to connect with somebody and feel like I can be honest with somebody about something and not kind of go against their entire worldview. And I think that creates a huge wedge between people.
Because these worldviews aren't developed on their own. It is an identity that they've signed on to.
Right.
So they don't really have, a lot of people don't really have an educated thought behind it.
No, they don't. I pay attention. It terrifies me what's going on in the world. I think it's terrifying. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, I think this is all just terrifying and awful, and it sucks. And I every day feel like I'm living in a cartoon or a movie or something. Yeah,
it's pretty scary. We just had, I don't think you were home, we just had ICE raids locally. Border Patrol set up on the interstate.
I read about that
2 days ago, and they had traffic backed up for miles, searching every car. And when I lived in Texas, I lived in El Paso for a while, and that was the norm. I mean, as you leave El Paso, you are going to go through a permanent Border Patrol checkpoint,
right?
And they're going to ask you, are you a citizen or not? And that's fine. That's all. It's 10 miles from the border.
Where's the border? 150 miles from here?
I don't know. I think we're within 100 miles as the crow flies, so that makes it legal. But
seems over
at the same time, the best thing that they can do is do that because they're going to really piss off a bunch of people who are normally would have supported that type of action, I guess.
Right, so, yeah. I mean, you're just disrupting people's days.
Big time.
And also, I mean, you go through as a white guy and you'll get let by, but you go through if you're of Mexican descent or of some literally any foreign descent, you're going to
skin color, yeah.
You're going to be questioned in a way that's scary. It's scary to be questioned by the police.
Sure.
And it's scary to think that they could just take your life away for no reason. I think it's awful. I mean, I read about that. I couldn't believe that they're this far south of the border.
Yeah, they used to have a permanent or semi-permanent setup over on 91 South, over in White River Junction, but this was a temporary they just threw up the other day.
Did I read that they deported a couple people
they nabbed some people. Yeah, they grabbed some people out on the road in front of here who had just eaten at our restaurant too.
Jesus, man.
So, we don't ID people coming in.
Yeah.
Most of these people that come here,
food, man.
Yeah, I mean, most of these people that come here are just looking to work hard and they send some money home, but they spend money in the economy too. I mean, these guys that they nabbed, they'd come into our place with a party of 9. They spent, about $180.
Yeah.
Money that they earned.
They earned and contributing to the local economy, and
they contribute to the overall economy. That's one of the biggest misnomers. People think that people who are working as undocumented, people that are working under a false Social Security number, they're saying they don't pay taxes. They do pay taxes. They pay if they're on your payroll. Like we've had people on our payroll before that we hired. They had a ID. They had a Social Security card.
Right.
Everything looked legit. And we hired them. This has happened twice in 14 years. Where later on we find out this person wasn't who they said they were.
Right.
But there's nothing we can do. They have a great ID. I mean, we look at the ID. It looks like them. It looks like a real ID. And they have a Social Security card. Then we'll put them on payroll. So, but both of these people that have worked for us over the years, they paid Medicare. They paid Social Security. They paid their federal income tax. But they never get any of those benefits because it's not a real, real name and number and all that. So they're paying thousands of dollars into the system that they never use. And that happens all over the place. And there are people who are paid under the table. I've never paid anybody under the table. That's a whole different story. But there are plenty of Americans who are paid under the table too.
Right.
So these guys that came into our place and spent that money, they're hanging drywall somewhere locally and doing construction. I would just guess based on they had drywall all over them. And, they were getting shuttled away in a van, and 3 of them got pulled over out on the interstate, or not on the interstate, out on just the road out in front here, and taken into custody. But it's tough. We just had another friend that we had that, once again, we didn't even know he was here illegally. He'd been here for 7 years from Guatemala. We just assumed he had asylum here. and a social security card and ID and everything, but it turned out that it was a false one. But this kid, he's a local kid, he's a Catholic boy, went to church every Sunday, no crime, no criminal interests at all, working 45, 50 hours a week, making really good money, paying a ton of taxes.
Good person.
Really good person. Huge, group of family and friends here. But
you wonder what the point is behind it all.
They put him in jail for 3.5 months and then charged him with a felony. So now he's a felony in the United States, and they deported him to Guatemala. So he's screwed.
Yeah, and when you hear about it on the news and you hear about it in the papers and on TV, and then you see it happen to somebody that you know to be a good person, and you wonder what the point of it all is and what the goal is in the end. I don't know as much as I should about the politics behind it all and the reasons behind it all and the different infrastructures put in place to prevent illegal immigration, but I like to look at things from like a human perspective, a human point of view, and that's obviously what your experience has been, is just seeing a good person be treated horribly and taken away from a community that they've created for themselves through hard work and dedication is on paper objectively a horrible thing, and it makes me terribly sad for those folks. And I don't know what the answer is or what the right thing to do is, but all I know is that it's a horrible thing and it sucks. And the scary idea that someone could come and take your life away, even though you've been living it the right way.
It happens. Yeah, we had to go clean this kid's apartment out because nobody else was around to do it. And that's it. It's not even it's been turned into a political issue, but it really isn't. If you look back, because it's not a Democratic issue or Republican issue. The last person that made any headway with immigration at all was Ronald Reagan.
Right.
And he was, the champion of the Republican Party, right? So he actually gave amnesty to people like my wife and thousands of other people that were living in the United States and working. And that was back in 85 or 87. And I don't remember, I think it was 80, anyway, one of those years. And since then, we've gone through George Bush 1, Bill Clinton for 2 terms, George Bush 2, Obama. Of course, I think largely his hands were tied by the divisions in the Senate and all of that. And now, the current administration sure as hell isn't going to do anything for immigration. But it's a human issue.
I've always tried to look at things from I'm just an emotionally sympathetic human being, and class, politics, race, whatever aside, it's just awful, man. I feel so bad for those folks, and I can't imagine it's easy to have to do that to somebody either. So it's hard, man. I don't know what the answer is. Yeah,
well, hopefully, I think it's going to take a lot of people from your generation getting up and participating in the next election to make an impact.
Yeah. Dude, I just want to open the news and have there be something nice happening. It's local boy gets a balloon from the fair instead of instead of some awful shit. It's always something awful, man. I can't believe how depressing and sad it all is, and I don't know. I want to know what I can specifically, because you feel powerless. There's so many safeguards in front of you actually achieving anything, and I want to know what I can actually do to make things better, make a better place, because it sucks right now.
They say it's you don't have to change the world. You can just make small differences, right?
Right. Yeah. I guess that's it.
That's it. Yeah. If everybody does that. So for kids that are, want to pursue a career like yours, or even just test it out, how do they go about it these days?
If I could recommend around here, if you're a local person listening to the podcast and you want to make music, I think just getting out and playing as much as you can. I know there's not a whole lot around here, but playing the open mics, getting in front of a crowd, constantly writing music. If you like to write music, writing every day. Not giving up on yourself, because your first few songs you're going to write are going to be awful. I wrote terrible music for 5 years, and I'm still writing some terrible music. I think I write about 100 shitty songs for every decent one I do.
Pretty good ratio, yeah.
Yeah, not a bad ratio. Yeah. It takes a lot of time. But if you write every day and you work hard at it, then you can develop the ability to create something cool. And writing about what you're feeling and what you're going through, performing that with that honesty in mind. I think putting yourself out there as much as you can, trying to find, there are communities of music here you can find if you look hard enough, and I think just not giving up on yourself, and knowing that if you work hard enough and you believe you have the talent, then you will get there one way or the other, and adjusting your expectations accordingly.
Did you put stuff out on social media when you were a kid, or did you just keep it all in person?
I was actually started out in SoundCloud, so I would work with obviously there's a big kind of like ski EDM community in Vermont. A lot of my friends were like producers and wanted to be DJs, and so I would write these songs on the acoustic guitar, and I would go hang out with buddies of mine and record music, and they would put like a drop on it, and then we would put it on SoundCloud, and I would just put it out there for my friends to hear, and it wasn't constantly self-promoting or anything like that. I just put it out for my friends to hear, and I think people really, really, really dug it, and that's how I kind of got my start, and it kind of started to build that way. But there are so many great free sites, and there's easy places to record. If anyone here is listening, Tux Rock Dojo out in New Hampshire.
Yeah, Tux Docking.
Yeah, he was the facilitator of my entire career. I would record all my music there. He would show me how to do things, show me the recording process. He allows you to come in, pay him a little bit of money to record a song very professionally with a world-class musician that he is, kind of overseeing the whole thing. And it's a great way to get your music recorded if you don't know anyone that has equipment or you don't want to spend the money on equipment. Put your music online. There's no shame in it. If it stinks, it stinks, and if it's good, people listen to it, and that's great. And it's easy and it's cheap, and I think it's the best way to keep track of your progress. I don't think there's an easy get rich quick scheme for music.
You'd like to know what it is.
I would love to know.
Yeah.
God, please tell me. I'll do whatever it takes. I will sell my soul to you. If I could give any, I don't feel very qualified to give advice on how to make it because I'm still working really hard myself, but I've gotten this far by writing every day and putting myself out there and playing as much as possible and not letting small setbacks kind of destroy the bigger picture for myself.
I mean, it's always a journey, no matter what. I mean, I suspect that there are people who are, much more successful than either of us that are out there that still feel that they're only on the cusp of it. You know what I mean? It's
incredible to me in my experience in the music industry, working with some pretty high class folks in this business, is how similarly they all think about creativity and about success. I was working with a friend of mine, Joel Little, who wrote and produced Pure Heroine by Lorde and won a Grammy for it. And he just did the Taylor Swift record, which is crazy. But he's one of the biggest songwriters in the world. Great guy. But I remember he said that he feels like every single song he writes is the last good thing he'll ever do. And that after he got a Grammy, he still felt like he wasn't good enough. And he felt like he was an imposter and he didn't belong there. Yeah. Those feelings are universal. And you can live with a feeling that you're an imposter and let that stop you, or you can have that be the drive to keep going.
I was going to say, in some ways, it's a good thing. You don't want to get there and be that guy that says, "Oh, I'm done. I made it."
You're probably not very good if that's the way you feel. I always feel shitty about yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah.
No, always know. Just always expect more from yourself, and always push yourself to do better. And don't let the expectations stop you, but let it drive you. So.
And you've made huge gains this year. I mean, you played some really big venues this year as a guest on stage. And I don't want to. You were at Bonnaroo, is that right?
I did Bonnaroo this summer. I did Lollapalooza, which was just crazy. It was crazy, man. It was 30,000 people were at the show I performed at. Yeah. And I did one song, but it was the most insane, surreal experience of my entire life. Mm-hmm. You could have picked out 30 people, and that would be all the people that were at Murano Gelato, and it was multiplied by 1,000. And it was insane. It was one of the coolest things ever. It was like looking at a sea of people in Dennis Rodman jerseys watching me perform. It was cool. It was a rush for sure. Surreal. I did Riverfest in Gloucester, which was I think 11,000 people, and Do Good in Montpelier, which was 10,000 people. So the biggest crowds I've ever played for this summer.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome, man. It's so cool to be able to do. It's actually the stakes are a little lower in those situations because, when there's 50 to 100 people in a room, you can see all their eyeballs and you can see if they're not enjoying it, if they're hating the show. But when there's 15,000 people, you can look out and you can't really tell. It's just a bunch of people sitting in the grass listening to the song. So it was a cool experience. It was kind of a low stakes environment for me, but I got to be in front of a lot of folks.
Sure.
So it was interesting. It made me really look forward to when I can come back and kind of be the headlining actor or be somebody that everyone's there to see. So you can have that many people there for you. It's just a crazy thing.
Is it terrifying or does it feed your energy? Or is it some of both?
It's both, man. It's terrifying. Just if you think about it in the way that it actually is, it's terrifying that all those people are looking up at you for at least 2 minutes to an hour, and you need to come to terms with that. But it also boosts your energy to think I have these people's attention. You are about to this part of the day for 30,000 people is about you, and you have the ability to leave them feeling good about themselves and feeling excited for you and to find out about you, and it's the biggest platform you'll ever get. So it's energizing and terrifying at the same time.
And you were on Seth Meyers not too long ago, right?
Yeah, I did Seth Meyers in June or July.
Yeah, we just happened to be flipping by and saw you, like, oh shit, it's Noah.
What's up?
That's really cool.
That was crazy. That was really cool. It was actually kind of a disaster because I was supposed to play Mess, which was a single we were pushing at the time.
Yeah.
And Mess unfortunately did not explode at radio, which is how we wanted it to. So we had to do the next single, and I found out that I had to perform the next single on Seth Meyers 2 days before the performance. We had never practiced it before as a band, never played it live. So Seth Meyers was the first time we ever played the song Cynic live.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting experience and really kind of nerve-wracking experience. But it was one of those, like, this is the worst thing that's going to happen to me in this live setting. So let's get it out of the way with it. It's all uphill from here. So.
Well, it sounded great, and I expected to hear something that I knew. You know,
Right.
A Passenger is another song of yours that I just love.
Oh, thanks.
I think it's a great tune.
Thanks, Jim.
But so I was, expecting something that I had heard before, and then Cynic, I thought it was great, and it went off really well.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I could see you just as a human being again. Because when you're performing, I mean, you really take on, you take on the stage, and you become that, and you're really just at one with the art piece, and you can see that.
Thanks, man.
And then afterwards, you're just
like,
back to Noah. You're like, now what do I do? I could see.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like it never feels normal to be in the TV studio with Seth Meyers, who's actually from Bedford, New Hampshire.
I was gonna say he's a New Hampshire boy. Yeah,
yeah, it's hilarious. He's from Bedford. He came backstage. And he's like, "Oh, I'm Bedford," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm Hanover." I'm like, he was saying that Sarah Silverman is Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Adam Sandler is Manchester, New Hampshire, and it was
Yeah.
just funny to think of these famous comedians being from New Hampshire. But it's crazy just to be up there and with someone you see on TV every day in front and beyond TV, and like, if you think about it too much, it freaks you out, and I was definitely freaked out.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah, you just gotta just compartmentalize that.
And it's all very manufactured. Like the room is freezing cold. There's like 100 people in the audience that are clapping on command.
Yeah.
And like there's like smoke going up and there's cameras moving around and it's just super strange, man.
Well, I don't know if you know, I did Colbert also as an audience member, so I know exactly what you're.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, it was great. We were up in the top right if you're on stage looking up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't get on the camera.
It's cool. Ed Sullivan Theater is awesome.
It's cold as hell though.
Cold. It's freezing cold, man.
Yeah.
It's historic. It's also pretty big. Seth Meyers is like half the size.
Is it? Yeah.
So Colbert was terrifying.
And you did which song on?
I did Hurt Somebody.
Hurt
Colbert.
Somebody. Yeah.
That was scary. Yeah. That was crazy. It's a cool space to be in, but like I was in such like a tunnel vision mode that I was just like staring at the floor, like shell shocked. But yeah, Stephen Colbert got my last name wrong 5 times. I think they had like reintroduced it 5 times, like Noah Kahan, Noah Kahan, and everyone's like, it's Khan. He's like, no, it can't be Khan. There's no way, because I've got that extra A between the H and the N, so he struggled with it. But it was a sweet experience.
Yeah, I bet that's pretty cool. And
Afterwards, it's cool.
Yeah. And that was pretty early in your career too, wasn't it?
That was about a year after I released my first song, maybe. Yeah, about a year.
That's great progression there.
Yeah, it was a lot. My manager called me and he was like, "Hey, we got some big news." And big news for my manager is usually like, "You're streaming well in Jakarta." Yeah. And I'm like, "All right, thanks, man." But he was like, "You're doing Colbert," and I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm not doing that shit, dude. I cannot do that. Like that's too big an undertaking."
Did you have the band with you on that one? I never saw.
I had the band with me on that one. Thank God. And yeah, they were all nervous too, and they're super hardcore, hardened veteran players, and they were scared too. It scared the shit out of me. It's usually like, "We got this," and they were all like super nervous, and I was like trying to calm them down. And yeah, my manager gets really nervous before my live performances, which is not what you want. Because I'm like, "We're gonna kill this." He's like, "You guys think you got it today?"
Yeah.
We're like, "Dude, you're the one that's supposed to have my back right now," you know. So yeah, that was nerve wracking.
I bet. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's fun, man.
Yeah. So, where are you going from here? What do you see? Like, what's your? I know it's tough to really know where your career will take you, right?
Right.
But what are your aspirations at this point?
It's a good question. Every day they change, but
Yeah.
I think ultimately it's just to be able to continue having a career in music. So it's a rare thing, and I value it and cherish it so much, especially when I come back home and I take a second away from it and I realize how lucky I am to be doing it. So being able to continue making music for a living, playing music for a living, but what I really want is to create a community in my music, and I feel like I'm starting to do that, where people connect with what I have to say, and I think that's something that you can't lose. And I want to continue making people feel a little less like isolated in their lives or in their feelings. And that's, I mean, I don't want. It's not like an arrogant thing. I just want people to feel. I feel shitty a lot, and I feel alone and sad a lot, and sometimes I feel over the moon happy about things, and I want to express those feelings, and I people feel the same way, and I want to be more connected to people, and I hope they're more connected to themselves through my music. That's what I want.
That's a beautiful thing. I will say that you're in a position right now where you can make a difference in people's lives. And I say this knowing that when I met Chester from Linkin Park,
Right.
I met him at a show Slipknot played, and then Linkin Park played, and then after the show, these guys just came down, and they were, you know, like at the edge of the audience, and they were just talking to people and shaking hands, and I remember just going up and just, you know, shaking his hand. I was probably one of the older guys there even then, you know, and I just I don't know. I honestly I couldn't even quote what we said to each other, but I just told him something just like you know, I just love your show, and just, you know, keep it up.
Right.
And I just, for that moment, I mean, he was really good. He just connected.
Yeah.
And he just like, you know, he's like, thank you, man. You know, you could just feel it. And they were out there, and they were talking to all these people that saw them as just, you know, almost on a deity level.
Yeah, right.
And just connecting with all these individuals out there, just one by one.
And that's
pretty sweet.
That's what it's all about. And may he rest in peace. Obviously, I've heard by all accounts a wonderful person. I connected to his music a lot. I think just having that moment of connection with a fan, having even just one fan feel like they were less alone in themselves through my music, or felt like they found joy in what I'm doing, is really the only reason I do it, and that's going to be the motivator for the rest of my career. So being able to continue connecting with people and making people feel like they're less alone or happier having known my sounds. So.
Well, it's a great album. I got it right here, and
yes, sir.
Just
on the vinyl, man.
Yeah, on the vinyl. I bought this off Amazon on the day one. Actually, I pre-ordered it so that they shipped it out.
Thank you, man.
But it's full of great music, and every song is on here for a reason. You can tell, you know, it's not just something that you put up there as filler. And
thanks, man. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. So keep doing what you're doing, though. It's great having you here, and I hope you come back and talk with me again.
Anytime, man. I love the conversation. Wonderful questions, and I love what you do, and I love Gusano's food. And I'll always be a patron here, and I'm always happy to talk whenever you want. Whenever you have me.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
And also, if you guys want to come to a show, just let me know, and we'll make sure you guys all.
All right. And how can people find you right now?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music. Noah Kahan. It's NOAHKAHAN. I know that extra A is confusing and annoying, but please check me out and listen to the music and go eat at Gusano's, y'all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man. Killer, dude. Thank you so much.
Thank you again to Noah for being on the podcast today, and don't forget to check out his new album, Busy Head. You can find it on most streaming services and also, of course, on Amazon. Go ahead and buy a copy. Do yourself and him a favor. Thank you to you for listening, and please come check us out again soon on Radio Free New Hampshire.